everybody. How's everything going? Is it too late to get your coffee? Get your coffee. See the people pouring in. The trolls have won. Hey, Savannah, Georgia. What's bigger than a landslide? Running unopposed. I'm the best. I don't know. Top 3. Maybe. Most persuasive tennis player. That would be McEnroe. You're gonna win $40,000 if he wins. Trump made the media look like fools yesterday. Yeah. How can this be real? You talk about the whole situation, how can it be real? Christina's at her house, I assume. How big a landslide? It's going to be a big one. It's going to be a big ass landslide. Let me find a place to sit down where I can put my coffee and go to her house. Yeah, you guys are just done with me. Will they kill Fallon? All right, so let's talk about Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Fallon and messing up Trump's hair and being nice to him. So the media tried to give Jimmy Fallon what I'll call the Matt Lauer effect, the Matt Lauer treatment. Acting like Jimmy Fallon was some kind of a serious news person who really should have asked the tough questions. And I'm thinking to myself, what? All right, hold on a second. I'm going to move my coffee. It's going to take 2 hands because you're going to be on a tray. So hold on, you're on my tray. That's my ceiling you're looking at. You're on my phone in my tray. All right, there we go. That's better. The Secret Service gun thing. So I'm just so amused. If the media spends another few days talking about what is obviously just Trump making a point, he's clearly not asking anybody to go kill her. Because for one thing, it's not like the Secret Service is going to put down their guns. Is there anybody who heard Trump and said, so this is what the opposition will have to deal with? They're going to have to say, I think we can convince them that maybe somebody would be thinking, hey, maybe those Secret Service guys put away all their guns and they don't have any more. This would be the perfect time to stage our assassination attempt against Hillary Clinton, when in fact, she's the last person in the world anybody wants to assassinate, because it turns out, I don't want to be the first one to tell anybody this, but, you know, this is a little secret, just between us, right? It turns out that the Republicans, they have a lot of guns, but they tend to use it for defense, if you think about it. I mean, the Republicans who have guns are either hunting or it's for self-defense. It's all the people on the Clinton side of things. And here I'm not trying to be political. I think I'm making an objective statement that the people more likely to use guns for offense are all on Clinton's side. They're the ones who want more immigration. If you're a terrorist, let's say, you want more immigration because that's how you would get in. Terrorists have guns. And there are more Democrats who have committed crimes with guns, I'm pretty sure. I'd like to see that. Actually, I'm making an assumption there, but I'd love to see a number on that. No, I can't say that word. Best day yesterday, so much winning. I love seeing the media angry at Trump as he's just dismantling their credibility. It's hilarious to watch. I don't know if you saw that Trump himself has retweeted some people talking about how he played the media. He's just laughing about it. He's literally laughing. All right, but let's get back to Jimmy Fallon. So Jimmy Fallon jokes around with Trump, because that's what he does, he jokes around. And somehow people are angry that, I think in the Huffington Post, which really just needs to go away. The Huffington Post just needs to go out of business. And here I'm talking about for the benefit of humanity. I don't mean this as in I don't like them or their business model is bad, although I don't like them. But seriously, they are not adding to quality of life in the world. They're subtracting. But they said that Jimmy Fallon, what'd they say? They were accusing him of validating the humanity of this monster Trump. How much cognitive dissonance do you have to be under to think Trump is actually a monster? One of my best friends thinks that. We're having these long email conversations where he's pretty sure that Trump is not just a Republican with different policies than his. He thinks Trump is actually like fucking evil. Like he's just going to bring the whole Hitler thing right to us. And this is a really smart guy. So it turns out that intelligence has nothing to do with any of this stuff. It's just if you get frightened enough, you will just believe anything. And you don't even have to be frightened to believe anything. It's just the other side. So if you're a lifelong Democrat and you're trying to find the bad in Trump, he gives you plenty of things to be frightened of. I mean, and that's on him, of course. But as you're watching all of these things you were frightened about start to fade away, just disappear, it's great to watch the people who thought they were basing their opinions on facts, and as the facts change right in front of their eyes, they don't change their opinion. For example, you may have seen the video going around of showing that Trump always makes, or often, makes those same mocking faces when he's talking about people. He goes, "Ooh," like this. It doesn't matter who he's talking to. But once he did it when it was regarding the guy who had the bad arm. Now, was he thinking of the bad arm when he did the "Ooh"? It looks like it. It definitely looks like it. But when you see it in context, that's just what he always does, this thing, it's hard to imagine that he didn't just do it one more time, and it just happened to be the wrong guy. Likewise, you can just go right down the list of all the things that you thought he was about. The birther thing. Have you watched people try to answer the birther question about why Ted Cruz wasn't a racist? It wasn't racist to say Ted Cruz was not an American citizen. And here's the answer that the Clinton supporters are giving. When you say to them, hey, but what about, Ted Cruz? Trump went after him too. Is that because he was a racist? And people say, no, that's completely different. And watch what happens after because. It's a completely different situation because Ted Cruz was born in Canada. What? What the hell does that have to do with anything? The point is that there are two people who, for different reasons, I agree, Trump said may not be an American citizen. He was trying to delegitimize both of them for exactly the same reason, because it was good for Trump. There's not really much mystery to this. So you don't really have to, if you take Occam's razor, Occam's razor says, the simplest explanation. So one explanation is he's a secret racist who, for some reason, thought that nobody would notice if he started going after President Obama for birtherism. He was, the theory is that he thought to himself, I think I'll do this big racist thing right in front of the world, and a lot. I'm not really going to triple down, double down, triple down on this whole birther thing, because even though people will know it's racist, but I'm going to do it in front of the world because being a racist in front of the world seems like a good strategy, right? Do you think that's what happened? Does that sound even a little bit reasonable? Or what's a simpler explanation? Trump thought it would be good for Trump. So he brings up the birther thing. He gets a lot of attention. It diminishes Obama in the eyes of folks. And it establishes Trump as sort of a thought leader on the Republican side. so that when he needs that, it's there for him. And then he runs for president, and there it is. Now he's running for president, and then Ted Cruz comes along. So what does he do? He uses this trick that has worked before. Now, it didn't work so well with Ted Cruz, or maybe it did because he beat Ted Cruz. But when Trump does things that are just good for Trump, and it's obviously good for Trump, I mean, you can just look at the situation and say, oh yeah, if it was bad for his opponent, it's good for Trump. So you don't need to go to racism. You don't need to go to this weird situation where the only person who didn't know it would look like racism was Trump himself. And when somebody pointed it out, then, are you imagining that he didn't, seek to correct it, or at least stop talking about it? Or do you think, hey, I think I want to be a huge racist? None of that happened. It was just good for Trump. And then people called it racist. What'd you think of Mark Cuban offering to pay $10 million to charity, or I think to a veterans charity? Was it a veterans charity? You can correct me. If Trump would sit down with him and explain all the details of Trump's policy. The idea here is that Trump doesn't know the details of his own policy. But let me have a few thoughts about that. Number one, was it about veterans? First of all, did he say he would give $10 million to veterans? Or was it $10 million as just charity? Can you confirm that it was to veterans? Charity of choice, okay. Well, that was smarter. All right. It's a good thing he said charity of choice. Now, because it's Trump, you're pretty sure that the charity of choice is going to be some wounded veterans kind of situation. Probably, right? So if you're Cuban, you've just sort of put out there, I have $10 million of spare money that I could give to veterans, but, only under these circumstances. It's like a huge mistake. So here's the thing. If you say the words, I'm going to give X dollars to charity under X conditions, you're committed to giving that money to the charity. It doesn't matter what happens. I mean, once you put it out there, you just look like a douche if you take it back. All right. So he's waving this $10 million out there in front of presumably wounded veterans, because that's where Trump would put the money if Cuban donated it. And then he's saying, psych, didn't mean it. I'm not sure that works for him. That's not the best idea. But the bigger point is Cuban trying to convince us that the president should know a lot of details about economic policies and trade and stuff like that? Because I don't think any president does. If you gave President Obama a detailed quiz about the details of Obamacare, it's got his freaking name on it, do you think he would get it all right? I mean, he wouldn't, right? Because even the lawyers... It's my dog having a dream. You hear that? Snickers is chasing a rabbit in her sleep. Come on, Snickers. Okay. So here's how I would handle that if I were Trump. Well, first of all, you could just ignore it, because I don't think Mark Cuban matters to him in any way. But if he didn't ignore it, here's how I'd handle it. I'd say, I think Mark's right. I wouldn't know a lot of the details of these plans, but that's also not the job of a president. My job is leadership and the big picture, and making sure that people know exactly what way we're going. We're going to lower regulations and lower taxes and do this or that. And the details, at this point in the race, it wouldn't make much sense to have details, because we'd just be arguing about the details instead of the big picture. And if we can all get on the same page in the big picture, which is elect me, is what you could say, then we'll work out the details. It's a system. If you think that these plans are born full and that they're likely to be, become laws based on the first draft, you don't really understand how the government works. So what I would do is, this is just a persuasion tip. There's always something called the big picture. So right now, Mark Cuban has staked out what I would call the small picture. The small picture is the details. He's literally saying, I want to give $10 million to charity to talk about the details of a plan. All right? If I were Trump, I'd switch it around and say, Mark, I'll give you $10 million to come up with an economic plan that scores well with independent economists. Let's see your idea. How about saying, Mark, this isn't the phase where we talk about the details. I don't think you understand how this works. This is the phase where both candidates talk about the big picture, where their priorities are. It's really about priorities, right? And the details get worked out later. If he did that, he would just make Cuban look like someone who didn't understand what he's looking at, right? Because this is not the phase where either candidate needs to be wallowing in the details. Even if you imagine that Clinton could do it and Trump couldn't, does that make her a better president? I don't think so, because you don't want your president wallowing in the details anyway. You want a president to say stuff like, and by the way, I give Bernie credit, plenty of credit here. Say what you will about Bernie and whether his numbers added up, because they didn't, but his priorities were clear. His priorities were, education and healthcare, and let's get it for everyone. Now, the details of how you do that are really hard, but I don't think it was necessarily Bernie's job to have the details. In the same way, I've argued that Obama's Obamacare is actually a huge success that's disguised as a huge failure. It looks like a huge failure because the details of it are problematic, right? There's details that didn't work out. But that was never the problem. That was never the objective. Obamacare was all about putting it out there, getting the country a little bit pregnant on this as a priority. Priority being covering people for health care. So he made the priority stick, and people are still working on the details. But health care, there's going to be more of it in the future, not less of it. So Obama was completely successful as a persuader in setting that priority, which carried through to this election, and there's even more of it now. So I think Trump can say, look, Mark, this is all about the time you set priorities. I agree that the details are necessary, but everything we're talking about now is first draft. Clinton's stuff is first draft. My stuff's first draft. That's the draft you want to see, right? The American public wants to see, should see, needs to see, and only needs to see the first draft, because we don't understand the details, and we're not terribly impressed if either of the candidates do, because we know Congress is going to work that out, their staff is going to work on it, in Clinton's case, maybe lobbyists are going to work on it. He should troll Cuban. I think so far he's been kind of just dismissing him. I'm not sure that's the wrong idea, by the way. Details are boring, yeah. You need to understand socialism better. I do, or he does. Cuban is pacing the Dems for 2020. Yeah, I think so. It does look like Mark Cuban is basically doing what Trump did with the birther thing. He's just making a lot of noise and trying to build a little credibility on the Democrat side of things. Jealous? Perhaps so. I didn't realize that Cuban was my age. Yeah. He's a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. Trump's entry in Miami, yeah. You saw the Les Deplorables music. So here's the thing. A lot of people said, oh, that's amazing, blah, blah, blah. I think any time that either side has made fun of either the slogan of the other side or what they said recently and managed to magnify it, those things are not terribly influential. Right? There's not a ton of persuasion there. It's fun. The Les Deplorables thing is sort of brilliant and fun, It might energize the base a little bit, but in terms of persuading anybody else, it doesn't have any use there. But it's fun, so I'm totally in favor of it. It's fun can be persuasive in its own way, right? If Trump has the fun party and the other party is the the boring party, that might have some influence, but not really in the message way, just in sort of the vibe way. Yeah, it was funny. It made you feel good, right? So if it was funny and it made you feel good, it's persuasive that way, but not in any other way. Yeah, so I didn't see Hillary on Fallon, but just the optics of it that we saw ahead of time, where Jimmy Fallon put on a hospital mask to keep himself from being infected from Clinton, and she, of course, had to play it like a joke, and we saw the picture of her high-fiving him. Yeah, we saw saw her high-fiving him, and it didn't look good. Just optics-wise, it just didn't look good for her. What about Monday night? That was scripted? Of course it was scripted. Huh. Oh yeah, so the ex-president of Haiti, was that who it is? Said something along the lines of Clinton tried to blackmail him, and it airs Monday. Okay. Yeah, Maddow attacked Pepe. So I forwarded an interesting article around on my Twitter that talked about Pepe and the white nationalist thing, and how either a lot of it or most of it came from two pranksters who tried to sell the story that Pepe was a white nationalist, white supremacy kind of a symbol. And it was a really interesting article because it explained that the whole 4chan stuff, and Pepe in particular, it's really people who don't have so much a political agenda, except they just like to cause trouble, because causing trouble online is fun. So when you see the white nationalist stuff in that light, it completely changes it. It's people who were trying to say the worst possible thing just to see what reaction you got. And when you realize that that's the culture, is literally people just trying to make you trigger, it's really kind of funny. Yeah, he's just an avatar. Will Pepe be brought up at the debates? Oh God, I hope so. I don't think Trump has any investment in Pepe though. So Godzilla seems to be missing. Have you noticed that Clinton lately has been persuasion challenged? And why would that be? If it were true, and we don't know, it's not confirmed, but if it were true that Robert Cialdini, the Godzilla of influence, as I call him, if he was consulting for the Clinton team, and I think that's likely because he consulted for Obama, what would explain the fact that, somebody's already ahead of me here, what would explain the fact that Clinton seemed to have great persuasion over the summer, and then just suddenly it just all fell apart? Like, what would explain that? Could it be that it coincides with Robert Cialdini's new book and his book tour, right? Because right now he's not really available. There can't be too many of you who have experienced what I've experienced, which is you write a book, and then you have to go on this promotional tour. The promotional tour gets you up sometimes at 3:30, 4 in the morning, and you're done, after dinner, and then you jump on a plane, and then you do it again, and you just keep doing it. So basically, you have no spare brain cells left. Like, when you're doing the book tour, you're not also doing your day job, because there's just nothing left if you do it right. So I would think he's less available. But as somebody is noting on here, as Clinton's own reputation gets worse and worse and worse, it must get harder and harder to support her. So if you're advising her and you're seeing more and more revelations about the Clinton Foundation and whatever else in her, let's say if you think she's concealing stuff about her health, whether or not any of that's true, you may not want to be associated with it. So while I doubt that he ever said something like, leave me alone, I'm too busy, I got to be on my book tour, if he's consulting, and again, we don't know that, it would be real easy for him to just sort of not be available for a while because he's got his book tour, right? So it's not that the people aren't asking him for advice, if they are. It's just that he has this built-in excuse not to give it if he wants to put some distance. And by the way, I would certainly want to put some distance on it if I were him, because it's not looking good. You know, keep in mind that I talk about Trump all the time, and I talk about his persuasion skills, and specifically not so much politics. And that alone has made me a pariah, right? I mean, I've lost friends over it. I'm sure if I needed to get a job, like to have an employer, it would make a difference. I haven't had I finally got my first paid speaking engagement that I've had in a long time, which is next summer. So my next paid speaking deal. Imagine going from several requests per month that would have been things I would have considered doing to I have one on the books in 2017, and that's it. Did somebody just ask me about London? Yes, actually, I will be in London. And let's see, when will I be in London? Between the 3rd and the 13th. So I'll be jumping around when I'm over there. But if you're in London and you'd like to see my corporate presentation and you've got a big budget, you should contact me, because I'll be in London between October 3rd and the 13th, give or take 3 days. I'm going to be off to Switzerland, I think. So if anybody wants a talk that would be mostly about my book, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big, you should contact me. Have your Speakers Bureau contact me, and I'll do that while I'm over there. What do I think of Steve Bannon? I don't really know anything about him. I mean, I know his resume, same as everybody else does. I hear that he's very good at what he does, but that's all I know. Thoughts on Steve Bannon? Well, I just gave you my thoughts. I don't know much about him, except that he's very, very good at what he does, apparently. How do you get on Maher if Trump is anathema? Well, Bill Maher is sort of an exception, right? He's looking for all points of view. Real Time with Bill Maher, they're specifically looking for people who have something intelligent to say, and they're not trying to make you say one thing or the other. They just want it to be interesting. Well, that's a coincidence. Am I coming back? Yes, I will. On your YouTube channel? Yeah, just send me a message somehow. Remember who is Steve Bannon? He's one of the top guys on Trump's campaign. Dr. Drew's death is confirmed? No, it's not confirmed, by the way. I'm just reading that. meaning that there's no reason to think there's anything wrong with Dr. Drew. Has anybody heard from him recently? How come morning bong rips are so good? That's a really good question. Finance and Liberty, I won't remember that. Why don't you email me at dilbertcartoonist@gmail.com. dilbertcartoonist@gmail.com. I rarely check that one anymore, but I will check it. I should check that today. Dr. Oz will be next. I'm just using my iPhone 6 Plus. Adam Carolla said Dr. Drew is scared to talk about Hillary. Well, he should be. Look what happened to him. Milton Erickson was the grandfather of hypnosis. There's not much else to say about him. Harry Shearer was invited to Bohemian Grove. I was invited there once. What's your social security number? Yeah, I'll probably get the 7 eventually, the iPhone 7. Is it still playing out as you anticipated or better? Well, so far it's pretty much the way I anticipated. I don't think Trump will be hurt too much by the attacks. The birther thing has been hilarious. Watching the people. See, here's the problem that they've given Trump. If all of your criticism is invested in, hey, he says Obama was not born in this country, and then Trump says Obama was definitely born in this country, then they have to change their criticism to something that's like the opposite of what it was 2 days ago. Because you can't say, oh, okay, that's what we wanted. Thank you. Thank you for agreeing with us, Donald Trump. Now we're all on the same side on that. Let's talk about something else. They don't really have that option because they're the opposition, right? So they've got to come up with something ridiculous. And so the ridiculous thing is that there's some weird difference between, for example, saying the same things about Ted Cruz because of some detail about he was literally born in another country. Like that would make any difference in this context. All that really matters is that you're questioning his citizenship, right? It doesn't matter what the details of that are. I don't know Darren Brown. Martial law if Trump wins narrowly. So I ran into a guy at yesterday. I was having lunch by myself, and he was sitting at the same lunch bar at a little restaurant in town. And so the bartender started talking about, it was actually the owner in this case, talking about the election. And this young man said that he'd worked from South Carolina Senate or something, and he'd moved to California for the next year because of the riots that are coming. So he's expecting riots after the election, like a complete breakdown in the social order, and he literally moved to get away from it. I don't think so. Here's what I think. The worst possibility is that the election is close, because then everybody thinks their side is going to win until they have this really disappointing moment that's compressed into election night. And if that happens, then there's a lot of hate compressed into one moment, and yeah, you could have some rioting in the streets. I don't think it's going to end civilization. I think it'll just be some rioting. But if by election day, as I've predicted, Trump has just a dominant lead, and everybody's predicting, oh my God, he's definitely going to win, then all of your surprise, hatred, anger has been spread out over weeks because you had a long time to get used to it. And then election day is just sort of the day that it became official, right? So if the election day goes the way the polls went, and the polls, hypothetically, showed a big margin for Trump by election day, then people will just say, damn it. But, their anger will be spread over several days. So that would be the safest situation. And by the way, here, let me give you an exclusive Periscope prediction. If the polls keep going in the way they are, and I think they will, Trump will go from sort of even with Clinton to everybody saying, yeah, he's definitely ahead. But when he goes to, yeah, he's definitely ahead, but, not a lot, but clearly in the polls he's ahead, he's going to say, this isn't good enough, or he should. He should say, winning by a small margin doesn't get the job done. If you want me to do the job with the right tools, I'm asking the public to give me the tools. Give me the mandate. All right? I've already won. Look at the polls. It's a week before Election Day. This, hypothetically. It's a week before the Election Day. I'm already ahead. I'm going to win. Give me the tools to do the job right. Let me win big. All right? So I think he's going to go for the landslide if he pulls ahead. Like, he's actually going to ask for the mandate, ask for the landslide. And, certainly a number of people will be running as harder in the other direction and saying, oh my God, my God, my God, we've got to prevent him from having a mandate because then he'll be too powerful. But I think there are just as many people, maybe more, the people in the middle. I think most people, I'll revise that. I'd say maybe a third of voters believe that no matter who gets elected, things will be largely the same because nobody can change anything. But a third is a lot of voters, right? So if a third of the voters heard the argument, look, you're right, no matter who gets in there, it's going to be kind of the same if you elect me in essentially a little bit better than a tie. If I just barely win, you're right, not much is going to happen. But we need something to happen. So it's not good enough. Winning isn't good enough anymore. It's not good enough for the country. It's not good enough for you. It's not good enough for anybody. You want to make me win in a mandate, a landslide. Then I'll get rid of the money in the government. I'll get rid of everything because I'll have the power then. What happens to the liberal media after Trump wins? The same. I mean, it won't change the trajectory that much. I mean, it might speed up their demise if that's the direction they're going, but I doubt it. God's debris and religion war seem prophetic. Well, I wrote them to be prophetic. I wrote them 15 years ago with the plan that they would become more relevant far in the future than they were when I wrote them. I've never written a book like that before. Normally when you write a book, you say, people are going to love this for a year or two, but it's not going to be better in 10 years. When I wrote both God's Debris and The Religion War, I said to myself, these are going to be small books today, but someday they're going to be huge. And someday is about now, all right? Next 5 years, I'd say, 5 to 10. Your percent prediction as of today? You mean prediction of Trump winning? It's always been 98% from day one. Well, not from day one, but maybe from October-ish last year, I think I said 98% chance of winning. And I've been saying a landslide since about then, too. I did meet Sparky Schultz toward the end of his life. Bill dies after the election. Well, everybody's going to die after the election. You want my spooky year compilation? Maybe. I'm still waiting for that. God, I guess I have to decide, don't I? I just don't want to do another project right now. By the way, my startup is getting ready to make a big splash. So I think I'm going to be working almost entirely on that after the election. Are you surprised at how accurate you've been? The answer is no. I'm not surprised. And I have this sort of a history of predicting things privately with people that people think is just so freaky they can't believe it. I mean, seriously, seriously freaky stuff. I can guess the price of things without knowing about anything about them. I just have this weird, it is a weird ability that I think is just pattern recognition of some sort that was beyond my rational process. Need a financial analyst? I don't. It's the only thing I don't need. How to unify religious components in my book? Well, the religion war and God's debris use religion as a backdrop. Pick some stocks for you? Yes. Get the S&P 500. You're welcome. Have I met anyone else that predicted Trump so easily? Well, I read an article yesterday that asked the question, if Trump wins, what are we going to see as the driving forces of that? Like, what was the explanation of why he wins if he wins? And I wasn't on the list, meaning persuasion was not on the list. Nowhere on the list of why Trump might win had anything to do with Trump. Isn't that funny? That nobody can imagine that he's just skilled. Isn't that the most likely explanation? If you have a human being going into an arena in which they don't have experience of that type, as he has gone into one arena after another in which he didn't have any experience, and he not only succeeded, he dominated. I mean, he really succeeded bigly in field after field. And then he goes into another field and he succeeds. And what do people say? Oh, maybe it's because of Pepe the Frog. Maybe it's because people are secret racists. I mean, they are, and Pepe the Frog probably made a difference. But isn't the most seriously, isn't the most likely explanation of someone who succeeds in one field after another that are different fields, that there's something about that person that makes them succeed one time after another, right? Isn't that the most likely explanation? Is it less likely that they managed to pick several fields in a row that all had a whole bunch of luck happening in them? I don't know. Seems like skill to me. And I also feel that when it's over, Trump's skill will not be considered a primary factor. Because the problem is, if you get to the end of this process and at the end you buy into my explanation, your head will explode. Because you'll realize that your whole life was just this absurd puppet theater and had no meaning whatsoever. It's kind of hard for people to wrap their heads around that. So I think instead people are going to say, no, it's because people are racists, or they're just going to default to whatever is closest to the worldview they already had. They'll probably think, my God, there are more stupid people in the world than we ever imagined. So the stupid people voted for the candidate I don't like, right? They're going to say stuff like that. But guess what? The stupid people didn't vote for Romney. It has something to do with the candidate. He might have some talent. It's possible. Yeah, we are a computer simulation, but we have to act like we're real, so it doesn't matter. It has a lot to do with the Republican Party ignoring their grassroots. Well, here's the different way to look at that. Trump realized it, and other people didn't. Isn't it still about Trump? I mean, everybody had the same situation. Chris Christie, he had the same situation. Why isn't he running? I mean, why isn't he still in the race? You're real. If we're a simulation, then are we being watched? I would say that could go either way. Yeah, I would read the book Influence before the book Persuasion. I don't think you have to, by the way. They do stand alone. But influence will blow your head off, and then persuasion will just kind of pick up the pieces, glue them back together, and then blow it up again. So I would read them in the order they were written. I don't know, just because that's the way other people read them. There's probably not a strong reason to read them in that order, but I don't think you can go wrong if you do it that way. Another candidate would have lost to Clinton, yes. Thoughts on Snowden? I'm not really following that too much. So the Nate Silver odds are up to 40%, right? Up from 13% or something like that. 42%. What happens when the odds hit 51%? Which will happen in about 1 week. The Asher tweet, I'm not aware of that. What was that? $42 if today. Yeah, it's funny. I don't make fun of Nate Silver the way everybody else does, even though you would think I should, because I'm sort of a direct alternative to his method, I guess you could say. But I think what Nate Silver does is really valuable as educating people about statistics and polls and and just how they can be misled. Because if you look at it, a whole lot of what Nate Silver writes about is how easily you are misled by some kind of poll result or another, and then he tries to explain it. So the fact that he's not predicting correctly this year has a lot to do with Trump, but I would say that the validity of what he's doing is still high. So he's having a tough year. Although I'll bet his web traffic is up, so probably isn't a bad year for him at all. But I would say that everything he does is rational in terms of explaining statistics and probability and polls and all that. So I think that's pretty educational. Trump takes New York. So what are how is New York polling? How far away is he in New York? Tell me what the gap is in New York, not the odds gap. I don't want to hear the odds. Tell me about the polls. Is it like a 55-45 sort of thing, or 15 points? So he's 20, 15, 12, 17, 15-ish. Okay, somewhere in that range. That's pretty bad. 17, 10 to 15, 17 down. I would say making up 17 points seems like a stretch. So to make that up, I think something would have to happen. You'd have to see some new event, which I don't necessarily think is going to happen. Oh, Taleb discredited Nate Silver? Okay, I changed my mind. I agree with whatever Taleb says. That's my philosophy in life. Anytime Taleb disagrees with me, I just take his side because he's smarter than me. And certainly if it's about logic or probability or math or economics or investing, any one of those categories, if Taleb has a different opinion than me, just fucking ignore what I said. Just go with him. You can't predict things like Friday. Yeah, you can't. Should I buy Taleb's books? Yes, you should. I think Taleb's books are really key to understanding investing in particular. The polls don't account for the 9/11 collapse. Don't they a little bit at this point, or is there no new poll in New York since that happened? Oh, well, that'll make a big difference. But still, 17 points, that's a lot. he might cut that in half, but that's not enough, right? The New York ones don't. This will be really interesting because as much as 9/11 talks to the heart and soul of the country, the way 9/11 talks to you if you're a New York State resident, and especially if you live in the most populated part of it, is got to feel different than it feels anywhere else. So if there was anything that could erase a 17-point lead, it might be some negative association with 9/11, but I'm not seeing it. Possible WikiLeaks coming. I don't believe it. I'm going to say that WikiLeaks is bullshit. I think they'll have some little stuff, like Colin Powell calling, Bill Clinton, dicking Bill. What do you say? He's dicking bimbos. Which I tweeted, in case you saw it, that it's like a movie. It's like a Hobbit movie where Bimbo Dickens is trying to snatch the ring from Gollum. Disney's Force Awakens. I don't know anything about the Disney movies you're talking about. New York wants a strong president. Well, they probably want a strong Democrat. Does Obama have the balls to suspend the election? Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot about Obama is going to declare martial law, suspend the elections, blah, blah. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a normal election. So there's going to be a little probably if Trump wins, there's going to be a little violence, a little bit of rioting, and then things just go back to Wednesday. It's just like, well, it's Wednesday. Let's act the way we did before. Hillary being an underdog helps? I don't know. Who wants a UN job? All this electoral map stuff, when people say, but how can Trump win? Look at the electoral map. I have an answer to that. He might get more votes. What if he just gets more votes? It's not really magic if he gets more votes. And what is the one thing that Trump has proven he can do? Get more votes. He's been doing it for a year. So if you've watched somebody do something for a year straight, just a continuous accumulation of support for a year, no direction but up, basically. I mean, over the summer he dipped a little bit, but basically it's been a straight line from his 25% that he had when he announced to where he is now, 40 plus percentage of the country on his side. I think by election day it's going to be much bigger. So what would be the surprise that he just got more support than he has? It shouldn't be a big surprise. You think, but Nate Silver isn't saying it's likely he'll win. So, by the way, I heard somebody use the word parking on TV, referring to people parking their vote with Gary Johnson. Had you ever heard the phrase parking, as in parking your vote, until I said it on Periscope? Maybe. I mean, yeah, you'd heard it. Had you heard the phrase parking their votes with Gary Johnson before I said it here? So some people have. Yes, that was yesterday. No, but you heard it after I said it. All right? It's hard to tell from these answers. But, so one of the things that people have been asking me is if I think I'm, and there have been some articles written about this, whether people think I'm influencing the race or just following it and commenting on it like everybody else. What do you think? So most of you have been watching the situation for a while. Do you think that I'm commenting and predicting, or do you think I'm influencing? So don't say yes or no because it'll get confusing. Say influencing or just commenting. And don't say yes or no, just say influencing or commenting so we know which one you're talking about. Influencing, influencing, influencing. But meaningfully? I mean, everybody's influencing everything all the time. But do you think I'm influencing in a way that would change the result? Really? Okay, I wasn't really expecting that. Seriously? There are that many of you who think I'm actually changing the result of the election? Commenting. Okay, now it's getting more commenting. So maybe half of you? Meaningfully. All right, so for those of you who think I'm influencing the election in some meaningful way, I would give you another framework for that. All right? Consider this, and this is going to be a little freaky, so pay attention to this. I think you'll like this. If you've been following what I've been blogging, this is going to be kind of fun. Let me give you two hypotheses. One is what people are saying here, that my blogging and tweeting is actually influencing the direction of the election in some meaningful way. Some people are saying that. And other people are saying, no, you're just commenting on it. Here's the thing. If I were predicting correctly, if I were just saying, if Trump does X, and I think he will, he's going to get a good result. And then Trump does X, and he gets a good result. All I've done is predict it. That's all I've done. But to you, it would look like I caused it because I said what was going to happen, and then somebody did it, and they got a good result. So it would look exactly like causation if all I was doing was a good job of predicting. Now, beyond that, a lot of the stuff I'm predicting, I'm sure, Kellyanne, when she joined Trump's team, she just was a smart person who said smart things to another smart person, and together they said, hey, we need to change what we're doing and do more of this smart stuff. Now, if I also am a smart person, then I would be able to predict a little bit better than, say, a dumb person of how two smart people would act. All right? So there's nothing magical about that. There's no influence there. And it's not even much of a prediction. It's just, I'm saying, well, smart people in this situation would do this. So let me give you an example. You saw Trump, moderate his persona and do some outreach to some African American churches. You saw him kissing babies and stuff. And you also saw me say he should do all those things. You saw me blog it. But you know who else would say those things? Fucking anybody, right? And just about anybody he hired as an advisor is going to say, it's time to sand off the rough edges. You're in the general election. So a lot of the things that I predict are sort of a little bit obvious. I'm going to say. I mean, I'd love to take all the credit, but it was sort of obvious that Trump needed to moderate. Now, the thing that I had that allowed me to predict this, when other people apparently are surprised by him doing the most obvious thing you can do, which is to adjust to correct the thing that's the biggest criticism. The biggest criticism was that he was scary. So he's acting less scary. I predicted that. Did I influence it? No, probably not, because it was just sort of obvious he should act less scary if that's his biggest problem. So it will look to you like I'm influencing it. But it would look exactly the same if I were just predicting it. Maybe he watches your periscopes? I don't think so. Well, the one thing I can say with certainty, because you've watched me appear on CNN and Fox and Bill Maher, and you've seen me on a bunch of podcasts, etc. You've seen me interviewed in a number of places. You've seen articles about me on Breitbart and Instapundit, and a whole bunch of other places, right? So I can tell you from all those experiences that they don't invite you out of nothing. They invite you because there's some producer who's been following you for a while. So I can say with certainty that the things I blog about, and even this Periscope, and by the way, I see members of the media getting on the Periscope. I'm not sure if you know that I recognize you, but I do. Somebody from CNBC in particular, I recognize his name when he comes on, and mentions me when he writes. So I know that the things I write are reaching the people who are influencers themselves. Now, whether that changes them or just gives them Jake Novak. I know I see him on the Periscope sometimes. But there are others as well that I know about, that I hear about. So it's usually the producers for these shows who are following stuff like this. Because if you're a producer, you're looking for new voices. So it would make sense that they would be sampling stuff. You influence the public. All right, let me ask you this. If you believe I've influenced the election, tell me in what way. Name something you think I influenced in the election. Tell me why. Tell me something you think. You explain everything, but explaining isn't always influencing. Encouraging Trump supporters. Made it enjoyable. Landslide. I didn't make a landslide. Awaken thought leaders. Megyn Kelly interview. I think the Megyn Kelly interview was going to happen, no matter what I said. Haircuts. Yeah, all the things that you imagine I've influenced. Exposing, persuaded, legitimizing. Do you think that's what I've done? I've convinced Trump's team to change? You think I've convinced Trump's campaign to do something different? To learn about influence? Well, that's something I've done. I have influenced people to learn about influence. And that's actually a pretty big deal. I'm hearing a lot from people who have, bought the books, or taken some of the advice in one of my books, and they're definitely being influenced that way. But what they do with it, essentially, I'm just giving them a tool. What they do with the tool, sort of up to them. Is anybody surprised that the Clinton campaign hasn't come after me? Or do you think that they have with surrogates on Twitter anyway? Do you think, are you surprised? You are surprised? Why do you think that is? If you think that the Clinton campaign has not come after me, why do you think that would be? You think they have? In some minor way? You mean just trolls? Trolls online? But if they have, it's been kind of minor. I've always had trolls online. I've always had critics online. Does it seem like there are more of them? It doesn't seem like that to me. Do you think it's because I'm too powerful? Do you think they don't want to fuck with me? Do you think it's because I have nothing to lose? Do you think it's because if I really did take sides, that it really would be a landslide? The mole is still hard at work. Yes. So really, but in all seriousness, you think that the Clinton campaign is aware of me in any meaningful way? They may read Dilbert. But do you think that they're aware of me and think I have made no difference and therefore I can be ignored? Or, like you, do you think that I did make a difference and for some reason they're not coming after me? Or am I going to be dead in about an hour and a half and it's all been planned? You dead man. They underestimate me. So they wouldn't come after me because you think they underestimate me. Well, there does seem to be a different sense of how important persuasion is on their side. They're obviously taking advice from persuaders, but they don't seem to use it all the time. You know, there's so many instances where it's clear that there's no persuasion skill whatsoever in the Clinton campaign, and then other times where there's a lot of it, like the word dark and, you know, scaring you about Trump and the nuclear codes and stuff. That's all advice. Your celebrity shields me. I don't know that my celebrity shields me from anything. First they came for Pepe. Oh, that's funny. First they came for Pepe. I said nothing. I'm small potatoes. So I'm under the radar. So according to some of you, not all of you, but some of you, I'm so persuasive that I'm changing the fabric of society and nature itself and the election. But the Clinton team can't see it. You're stealthy. I'm on the radar but underestimated. Harming you could backfire on them. Let me ask you this. If you were Hillary Clinton, and you've been reading my blog for a while, would you want to piss me off? Because right now Hillary Clinton, is just a politician to me. I mean, she rubs me the wrong way, but not in any special way that, that's meaningful to me. Yeah, I don't think she'd want to. Does anybody think that I've gone full persuasion yet? Does anybody think I'm holding back? No. Yes. Some of you think I am holding back. Yes. Nope. Yes. No. What? No. So you don't think I'm holding back? You think I've put everything out there that I could do persuasion-wise? I don't mean to scare anybody, but I haven't even started. It's not that I'm holding back. It's that I haven't had a reason to use it all. I mean, so far I've used my persuasion just to convince you I can predict things. And apparently I can, because the results seem to suggest that I have. But imagine, how many of you saw my blog post about doctor-assisted dying? Because that's what not holding back looks like. If you read my post, you might want to go blog it or go Google it. If you saw what I wrote when my father died, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, a couple years ago. If you saw that, then you know what not holding back looks like. Okay? That was full persuasion. That was weapons grade, holding nothing back. I am going to change your mind, and I'm not going to think about the moral consequences, because in this case, the moral consequences were all, or the morality of it was all on my side. So there was no ambiguity in that case. What's different with the election is that I know I'm not smart enough to know who would be the best president. Obviously, I have a preference for entertainment. I know who would be the most entertaining president. I mean, that's obvious. Everybody knows that. But if you ask me which president is going to, do best for the economy, keep us out of wars, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows that stuff. So if I knew that one of the candidates just absolutely was the right choice, and picking the wrong candidate would be the end of the world and usher in the new Hitler or anything that bad. If I knew that, I would be balls out on persuasion, but I don't know that. So the difference was that when I blogged about doctor-assisted dying, I have no ambiguity about that. All right? Having that option for the terminally ill is absolutely, unambiguously ethical and moral, and far, far better than the situation of the past. It's already, it's legal to have doctor-assisted death now in California, so we passed that. But if anything happened to make me that certain about this election, and by the way, it wouldn't matter which way it went. If some new information came that surprisingly made it absolutely clear who we do and do not want for president. Unlike you, I don't have the same sense of certainty. I can't see the future in some weird, detail that I know that, Clinton will boost the economy by 2%, but Trump will do 2.5%. I don't know. I don't know any of that. I could take some guesses just like you can, but I know the track record of my guessing about, let's say, economic policy. Pretty bad track record, just like everybody else. Nobody knows that stuff. Nobody can guess, how things go with one plan versus another. We're just not that smart. So, but if I ever reach that level of certainty, you would see something truly frightening come out of me. But you're not going to see that. Is that your October surprise? No, the October surprise has nothing to do with me. If there is an October surprise. And by the way, here's another prediction. My prediction is there will be no October surprise, meaning that what we have is largely what we're going to have, right? Nothing about taxes. I think the WikiLeaks will be a surprise, and they might happen in October, but I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's just going to be another drip, 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 drip. So there might be new stuff, and people might care about it, but it's not going to be the biggest thing in the world. Terrorist attack? Well, maybe. Hillary coughing. So I tweeted this yesterday. Let's say you're Nate Silver and you want to put the odds of this election. You're trying to calculate the odds. So you're looking at the historical patterns and how people did in the primaries and who's likely to vote and all these statistics. But maybe you can simplify this, and let me simplify it for you. In 2 weeks, we expect that Clinton will no longer have pneumonia. I'm guessing, right? I'm not a doctor, so anyway, somebody correct me if I'm wrong that in 2 weeks her cough that's coming from pneumonia should be already taken care of, right? So 2 weeks from now, if she has another one of those coughing attacks, she's retired, right? I've said that in 2 weeks she's one public cough away from retirement. That's how I calculate the odds. So given that she's been coughing for, a year, but her excuse for coughing has just been covering this, latest period of pneumonia, what are the odds that someone who's been having coughing attacks for a year in public, who has only recently attributed them to something that happened just in the last few weeks, what are the odds that that person who is appearing in public, talking in dry environments where your throat gets dry, what are the odds that in 2 weeks she will not have another coughing attack? 0? Close to 0. All she has to do is have a little coughing attack on stage or even just on camera somewhere. And then everybody's going to say, you fucking lied about that pneumonia. You're dying. Now, that doesn't mean it's true. Like, sometimes a cough is just a cough, right? Your confirmation bias will kick in at that point. But you can say for sure that she lied about it. And if she's lying about something that important to the voters, which is, are you covering up some health problem that we don't know about? Once it's confirmed, and I'm pretty sure it will be, once she has a coughing attack in 2 weeks, and the doctors look at each other and say, she was on antibiotics and pretty sure that pneumonia is gone, that cough will be the end of her campaign. Tube in her ear. What's the tube in her ear got to do with anything? Now they're looking for the because. Yeah, the fake because. So since we're not rational creatures, we're looking for reasons to hang our decisions on. Shart. Isn't it already basically over? Yeah, I think it's over. Yeah, I've predicted that it's over. Trump will win at this point. But part of the reason it's over is because 2 weeks from now she's going to cough. I mean, that's not the only reason, but there's so many reasons that it all is moving in his direction that it's hard to imagine it going any other way at this point. Please go for the real scandals. Drone killings? She's wealthy enough to afford the best medical care. No, actually, I'm going to say the opposite. People like Clinton are wealthy enough to hire the best medical care, but the trouble is that a doctor doesn't say no to somebody like that. So if you're the doctor of Clinton and you get that job and you're like, oh man, I can claim on my resume, I'm Clinton's doctor. I love this. I love being in the middle of things like this. And then you say, I need you to take this pill. And she says, I'm not taking that pill because it'll make me droopy and I won't be able to good on the stump. And then the doctor says, medically, you need to take this pill because you might die. Your blood pressure will be too high or whatever it is. But in those cases, when the client, the patient is so powerful, the doctor doesn't get to get his way. So it's sort of a terrible job. So you can't really say that she's buying the best medical advice, even though that's true, if she might not be following it. And that's, when rich people die, you often find that they talk their doctors into doing shit that the doctor shouldn't have done. Elvis, Jackson, Prince. Yep. Nobody edited Stephen King. What? She had a lot of excuses before but you can't fault her for saying it was the allergies before the pneumonia, or at least for thinking it was allergies if she thought it was allergies before. Are they hypnotizing the doctor? No, it's just power thing. The doctor wants to work with powerful people, and they know if the powerful person gets mad at him, they can't. Will she fall again? I think that's unlikely. I'm allergic to Trump, yeah. I remind you of Steve Jobs. In what way? She's got a Pepe in her throat. That's funny. Allergy pills will make you drier. Well, allergies, I've never heard of allergies making you cough, but apparently that's the thing. Have you ever heard of that? I've never heard of allergies make you cough. I have allergies, and they never make me cough. I look like Michael Stipe. Let's be honest, I look like every bald guy my age. Every white bald guy my age, they all look like me. Of a certain weight. If they're controlling their weight, they kind of all look like me. They do, yeah. So some people do say that they make you cough. I've just never seen it. In my whole life, I've never heard somebody have a coughing attack and then say, my allergies are bothering me. In my whole life, I've never heard that. And I know a lot of people have allergies, like everybody. I once went as Larry David for Halloween, and all I did was put on a shirt that looked like his shirt. Yeah, for 4 minutes, right? That's something different. All right. I know I'm going to have to go back to work. Hillary's too big to fail. Somebody on my blog said she's too sick to flail, because I said that her campaign is sort of flailing around. You know, their attacks right now are pathetic. Well, by the way, let me put on a hypothesis that will create confirmation bias. So you're going to think this is true even if it's not. It's all right. Be cautioned that what I'm going to say will prime all of you for confirmation bias. I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I think I'm actually observing something that's worth noting. Here's what I'm noting, and I want to see if you have the same reaction. So we've seen Clinton back on the campaign trail, and as far as energy looks pretty good, right? Her energy looks pretty good, I think. Wouldn't you say? Her energy looks good? I mean, she's not doing a lot of events because her energy isn't good. If she's got, if she has, yeah, she does. She looks like she has energy. But let me ask you this. You've heard what she said. You've heard her responses to Trump. You've heard her talking for the last day. Does she seem as sharp as she normally is? In other words, does she seem as smart as she did even 2 weeks ago? Have you noticed that she seems a little bit, so you haven't noticed that? Or well, see, this yes and no is confusing because I keep changing the way I'm phrasing it. Are you saying no, she doesn't seem as smart? Let me ask the question in a direct way, and then don't say yes or no because that gets confusing. Say she is same or dumber. Same or dumber compared to 2 weeks ago. So just say that, same or dumber. Dumber, 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 slower, slower. Slower is a good word, right? Dumber, 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 slower, slower, slower. All right. Now, had any of you noticed this before I brought it up? All right, this is the new question. So this will be yes or no. Had you noticed, because you're all saying the same thing, you're all saying that she looks dumber, or almost all of you. How many, just say yes or no now, how many of you had you noticed it before I brought it up just now? Yes, yes, no, same, 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 yes, yes, no, 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 yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, 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 no. So a few more yeses than nos. But you'd expect that given the way I asked the question and how influential I am and confirmation bias. So there's probably a selective memory thing going on. The moment I said that, you sort of forgot all the time she was smart and remembered all the time she wasn't, and then you rewrote your memory to say, yeah, I think I do remember seeing that. So you can't trust your memory in this case, right? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that if you think you remember that she was a little slow the last week or so, or last few days, that may have been confirmation bias, and I may have just created it because I brought it up. All right. So be aware that you shouldn't trust your own perception right now, which is kind of cool. All right, because I don't trust my own, even though I'm sort of forced to act like I should or do, but I don't. And yes, it does work that fast. Yeah, the confirmation bias would just work that fast. So the way I phrased that would have influenced many of you to misremember your experience for the last few days. Just the way I said it, that would have been enough. Her voice is deeper and speaking slower. I think people told her to be, yes, less yellery and more Hillary. So you think she's on heavy meds. Here's what I think. I think that she's not as sharp as she was. I think that it could be just the pneumonia. I mean, that can knock you back. Could be whatever meds she's taking. It could be lack of sleep because of the meds or the pneumonia. It could be she's, a certain age and she's getting worn down. There are lots of reasons for it. But I'll tell you my subjective opinion is that when she came back, and here I'm just talking about her tweets. By the way, I'm not even talking about watching her live. I'm talking about the quality of her Twitter responses. Now, we assume that she at least approves the tweets, even if she's not authoring them. She at least approves them. And the stuff that's coming out is so divorced from good persuasion. Klonopin, you think? Why would she be on Klonopin? That wouldn't make sense, would it? I'm pretty sure they wouldn't put her on Klonopin because she'd be done if they even put her on a little bit of that. Flailing, yeah. Yeah, her Twitter feed, it just looks like a candidate who's not as smart. And I mean that literally. She just feels less smart lately. And imagine yourself in that situation. If you put me in that situation, I'm pretty sure I would be less smart this week. If I had to deal with all the pneumonia and just watching my campaign collapse. Imagine what's happening inside our campaign right now. Imagine you're not hearing about it because it's a pretty disciplined campaign, apparently. But imagine you had watched your poll numbers just plummet. And then imagine you'd watch your candidate physically plummet. You're watching the poll numbers collapse, you're watching your candidate collapse, and then you're watching her responses being not so good, right? So how does that make you feel if you're on the campaign? It's terrible, right? So you're going to be down, your candidate's down, your downness makes the candidate down, the candidate's downness. It's like this whole circular, death spiral. So, and by the way, that, I'm pretty sure they're in a death spiral right now. But that's exhausting. You don't sleep too well when you think you were going to be president, and then suddenly, psych, look, guess what? You're not going to be president. So if her intelligence this week was identical to what it was a month ago, I'd be really surprised. Right? The normal situation that we're observing, even from a distance, would knock a couple of points off your IQ. All right, give somebody a pretty serious ailment like pneumonia at a certain age, consider what it does to their stress, their sleep. Maybe there's a baseline of health issues that we don't know about. What does that do to your intelligence? I think it lowers it. Now, to be fair, Clinton is unusually smart. So someone that smart can literally lose 20 points on her IQ, and you're not going to notice it right away, right? She can still be president. I mean, what do you think her IQ is? I mean, no matter what you think of her. Let's say you have the worst opinion of Hillary Clinton on lots of different levels. You probably don't think she's dumb. And in fact, if she did an IQ test, I'm guessing she's 140-ish. Wouldn't you say? 135? Oh, do we know that? 20, 140. Are these real numbers, or do we know her IQ from some source? You're acting like you know some of these people. 164. If I had to guess, 140 to 160, somewhere in that range. It's hard to measure that with any more specificity. But imagine a candidate with an IQ of, let's just say 150, rounded off. And I think that's fair. I mean, you look how smart she is. She's super smart. Bill Clinton, super smart. If you've got an IQ of 150, you can lose 20 points and still look like a smart person. Think about that. You could lose 20 points and still be smarter than 95% of the public. probably. Yeah. So the public isn't going to notice if she's a little bit less smart. And actually, that's not a little bit, 20 points off your IQ. Just hypothetically here. We don't know that anything has really happened. But I think that really smart people would notice. I think I'm pretty smart. And to me, just the way she chooses her words in her tweets, the priorities, the way she's wording things, the focus, she doesn't look as smart as last week. Honestly, that's my impression. Now, that doesn't mean I'm right, remember? It's all confirmation bias. It's just a purely subjective opinion. But if you want to put it in full context, keep in mind that last December, I said she doesn't look healthy to me. I think she's concealing a health problem, or that there will be a health problem before the election. And it looks like there was one. That doesn't completely validate me, because I thought there might be some underlying problem all the way back then. But if she has a coughing attack in 2 weeks, I think I'm back to being validated. Emotional IQ, high, I would think. I would think Clinton's emotional IQ is like really good. Trump 156. Christina's a 156, actually. Yeah, Christina's got a Berkeley degree. You don't get those unless you're pretty smart. Could medication temporarily lower intelligence? Yes, medication could temporarily lower. Let me give you a specific. So Clinton is on thyroid medication. Everybody agrees with that, right? So let's. I'll try to distinguish between the things that we know are facts and the things that are me just talking on Periscope and just hypotheses and stuff, right? So if she's on thyroid medication, and correct me if any of this is wrong, I'm not a doctor, but I've known people who are on thyroid medication. The drug you take for that, does it act like speed? Can somebody confirm that the drug you take if you have a thyroid problem is essentially speed, a version of it? Is that true? Somebody's saying no. Because the people I know who had thyroid problems, like Graves, they take a speed because your thyroid is not giving you the energy you need. Confirm. So some people are saying no, and some people are saying confirmed. Does it depend what kind of thyroid problem you have? I would imagine it does, right? Very complicated. All right, so can somebody just look up that specific drug she's taking? Is that an upper or not? I would be surprised if that's not metabolism increase. So speed, right? It's an upper. Okay. Now, we know from studies that people who drink coffee, if they're coffee drinkers, by the way, this doesn't work if you're not a coffee drinker, but if you're a coffee drinker, you'll do better on a standardized test if you've had your coffee than if you haven't. It turns out if you've never had coffee at all, I think coffee doesn't help you that much, or maybe it makes it worse. Thyroid medicine, the same thing, I would think. If it changes your metabolism, I would think that it could change your performance on an IQ test. I watched my coworker back in my corporate days who had a thyroid problem, and her life was completely determined based on how much of the medicine she could get. And she would talk her doctor into giving her extra, or she'd take more than she was supposed to. I don't know which was the case, because it was speed. And when she took it, she wasn't just as good as somebody who had a normal thyroid. She was better. She could do immense amount of works. She had so much energy. She was, smart. And by the way, nobody likes to say this, but speed makes you smarter. All right. I shouldn't tell you that, but kids, college kids, if you're taking speed, you're doing better on your tests. Don't take speed, kids. But if you do, you will do better on your tests, because that's what it does. I can tell you this from experience. I shouldn't admit this on Periscope, but I'm going to. My senior year of college, I took a pill called a Black Beauty. I think that was just the street name for it. It was just straight speed. I wrote my entire senior thesis in economics in a weekend. This is something that had allocated the entire semester for. Right, so really, the entire semester was to write this senior thesis. I did it in a weekend, and it's because speed is really good. And I got a B plus, which was sort of a normal grade for me for doing something in a weekend. And then I took the rest of the semester off. So my point is that speed makes you smarter, right? We don't like to say that in public because then kids are going to take a bunch of speed, and you really don't want to take speed. All right? You don't want to get hooked on that shit. It's the worst, probably about the worst thing you could possibly put in your body, because if you get hooked on it, you just can't. It's really hard to go back. I mean, that's what meth is, right? It's basically speed that makes you feel good. So here's getting back to Hillary Clinton. If they had to give her new medicine because of her pneumonia, sometimes they might adjust the medicine you have, or the new medicines might conflict with the effectiveness of the meds you have, or some change in lifestyle might affect it, that sort of thing. So if you're taking meds and you're sick, the odds are that some of those meds are going to make you less smart, especially if those meds are specifically about regulating your metabolism, which thyroid meds presumably would be. So when I say she looks this week to actually be less intelligent than we know her to be, because she's super intelligent, she just doesn't look it this week. I think that's real. And it's a hypothesis, but I'd actually be sort of surprised if she could get the same score on an IQ test if she did it today as she would have 2 months ago. I mean, I would be amazed if that's the case. Now, she might be back to normal in another week, so I'm not saying this is some kind of a permanent condition, but my observation is she's off her game. Thyroid meds have to be constantly changed, right? You're tweaking them all the time. So under that situation, as I saw with my old coworker, there would be days when she just couldn't even move. She was just slow and dumb. And then days when she was the smartest person in the room, no question about it. Anti-seizure meds could slow your mind. Is that true? It feels like almost every kind of powerful medicine makes you dumb. Really, even ibuprofen, huh? Diazepam. Tweaking. No, cartoonists don't have coworkers. Well, actually, I do have an assistant. Provigil is speed. She mentioned it in an email. There you go. Clinton is on speed. That's probably literally true, right? That, the medicines she's taking for her medical conditions are probably just a form of speed. At least in how they affect your energy, not how they affect the rest of your body. Guess the IQ of Trump? I don't think we know that. Am I dating my assistant? No. Provigil is not speed. It's 156. I know the internet says that Trump's IQ is 156. But I don't think you can believe that sort of thing on the internet. You've taken Provigil is modafinil. So the person who's taken it, did it charge you up or make you dumb? It improves wakefulness. Wakefulness, you say. Extrapolated from his SATs. What did he get on his SATs? The best IQ. Provigil is a stimulant. There you go. So basically, Clinton is all stimulated on drugs. It's not an amphetamine, though. Tris status? I don't know. How is speed different than a stimulant? I don't see it as different. Would I ever admit anyone was smarter than me? Is dicking Bilbo's a linguistic kill shot? No, it's not, but it's funny. There's my pneumonia kicking up again. All right, I think we've done enough of this. I'm going to run. Everybody watch TV today. See if anything new happens. I will see you later. Bye.